Welcome to Vue.js Application Development Essential, Section 4, Awesome Transitions and Animation. In this section, we'll create beautiful and smooth transitions and animation. At the beginning, we'll dig into transition between elements and components. Then you will create a list and add smooth transition into it. And at the end, you will learn how to create reusable and dynamic transitions. So in this video, I will introduce you into the Vue.js transitions, and we will create a single element components, transitions, initial render transition, and at the end we will transition in between elements and components. Single elements components transition. So let's go to our code. I removed everything inside that with an ID app. Also, I removed each method and our app data component is empty. So basically, Vue.js provides a transition wrapper component which allows us to add, enter, leave transition for any element or component. For example, let's create a transition component. And inside that transition, we can create a paragraph with a text, for example, hello transition, just like that. So we wrap our paragraph node, or we can wrap any component, and then we have to specify a transition name attribute. For example, I will call that my transition. Okay, so now we can create the if statement into our paragraph. You may think why? Because we want to test the transition enter leave. So create a show data. I will create a show data. So the initial data for show will be true. And now we can create a button with a text toggle show with the onClick event with a method toggle show. Now we can create toggle show method inside the methods toggle show, which is a function, and inside that function we want to type this show is equal to negative this show. As you can see, it works, but we are only showing or hiding the hello transition text without any transition. So how we can add transition? We can use the CSS classes, and there are 6 CSS classes. vEnter2, which is an ending state for enter, vLeave, which is starting state for leave, vLeaveActive, which is active state for leave, and vLeave2, which is an ending state for leave. Okay, so how we can specify our classes? We have a name, like my transition. Now with our style, we can add my transition, and then we can specify our classes, like enter, active, and for example, I will copy that, my transition, and my transition leave active. Okay, so for enter active and leave active, we want to add a transition. For example, opacity with a half second. And now for my transition, enter, and my transition, leave 2, we want to specify opacity to 0. Okay, so let's refresh. And now toggle. Again, toggle. Awesome. And how about animation? So I will create another transition element. I will call that my animation with a text hello animation. Okay, just like that. And then copy the name, like my animation, and paste at the bottom my animation, enter active. So on enter active animation, we want to call animation bounce in a half second. And also create my animation leave active and also bounce in a half second and add reverse. And then at the end we have specify bounce in keyframes. So add keyframes, bounce in. So on 0%, want to add transform. For example, scale 0, copy that. On 50%, scale 1.2, and on 100%, we want to scale into 1. Okay. Refresh. And as you can see, our transition and animation works. Awesome. Initial render transition. You can also specify custom transition classes by providing classes like enter class, and then you can specify my class. So you can use animation or transition. You can specify your class, just like that. My class. Super easy. So why we need like enter class or something? And we can use enter class, so our custom classes, for instance, when we want to combine a view with some CSS library. For example, animate.css. And also Vue provide a JavaScript hooks. For example, we can provide v on enter, and then you can specify a method. Something like that. Okay, cool. So when a transition state is enter, it will trigger a method. Initial render transition. So to do a transition on initial render, you have to add an appear attribute. So if I add appear to the transition, which is my animation, and if I refresh, you will see the enter animation. Let's add to the appear to the my transition and refresh. You will see also the hello transition on initial render. Transitioning between elements. So we did a couple of examples with a single element. You can do the same for the component. So instead of paragraph, you can specify your component, for example, app header, as we did before, or similar. But if you want to transition between more than one rough element that have the same tag name, you have to provide a unique key. For example, you have two paragraphs, like hello transition and then hello world, but you have to add a v else statement, as you can see now. But there are two same tag name. So add a unique key attribute, for example, my transition key and my hello key. And that's how it works. Transitioning between components. So transitioning between components, it's even simpler. We don't need to provide a key attribute. So we can create, for example, Vue component called app home. with a template, with a div, and inside that div, create a text home. And we can do the same for the second component, app about, and text about. Okay, instead of paragraph, provide app header, app home. Okay, remove that, and app about. Refresh, and as you can see, our transition looks awesome. It works nice. Okay, cool. So